I've only had one major injury in my life, and it was when I had to go to the hospital and get a bunch of stitches. So I'm going to tell you that story today. So when I was a little kid, I loved to play outside, right? Me and my younger brother both, we loved to be outside. My parents were really big gardeners, so that really worked out well for us. And so on this particular day, I think I was in like second, maybe third grade, and my brother would have been kindergarten, probably like less than 5, something like that. So on this particular day, it's this beautiful sunny blue day. It's nice and warm out, so my brother and I are both playing around outside, and we are running around without shoes on. And it's pretty normal. We have a big grassy yard. It's totally fine. And usually my parents are out there gardening with us, but today my mom had to rush off to a big meeting, and my dad had been talking to our neighbor just like one house down. He was so close. And so for that like 3-4 minute time span while my parents are both gone and no one was in the yard with us, this is when this big accident happens. And so I am walking along the stone garden path that we have. And in the middle of the path, and it's not usually this way, but in the middle of the path there was this big rock. And I decided that I wanted to move the rock. I wasn't going to step over it. I wasn't going to go around it. I was going to move it. And so I picked it up and I put it on the side of this like stone garden wall. And as I take a step forward, the rock rolls off and lands on my foot. And it was probably the most painful thing I have ever experienced, or at least I imagine it to be, but I don't remember any of the pain at all. There was so much adrenaline in my body that I just felt completely numb. And so I look down and I see this big rock on my foot. And so I pick it up and I move it off. And it's really interesting. There's this big gash across my toe. And I look down and I look closer at it. And in this gash, inside of it, there's this kind of white, like shiny kind of ridged thing. And I learned later that it was like a tendon or an extension ligament, something like that. But I thought it was so cool. And so as I bend down to get a closer look at it, the blood starts to well up and out of this cut. And so I go, oh my God. And I run inside. And I am so impressed with my own, thinking skills at the time. So I run and I grab a washcloth and I start applying pressure. And I keep applying pressure for maybe like 10-15 seconds. And I take it off to really quickly get a look at this shiny white ligament thing. Then I'll apply pressure again. So I realize that it's not stopping bleeding and it's starting to hurt just a little bit, like pinpricks in the back of my mind. And so I hop out of the bathroom and down the hall, and my dad still isn't back yet. My little brother is outside, and he is spraying the hose. He's spraying the house with the garden hose, which he's not supposed to do, but we weren't telling him not to at this point in time. And so I'm yelling for him, and I yell, come in, Duncan, I need help. And so my poor little brother runs in. He's not wearing any shoes either. And so I'm yelling at him, trying to get him to put his shoes on. And I'm getting mad because he's not putting his shoes on right. They're on the wrong foot. And I'm getting so angry with him because I'm starting to hurt a little bit more and a little bit more every single second. And because I was yelling so loud, my dad comes running and he goes, why are you yelling? And I just kind of hold up my foot and I show him. And he understands that this is a big deal. So he runs and he gets a bunch of bandages. He wraps my foot and then he makes me elevate it. He calls my mom. And she is only a few minutes away, so she turns around and she drives back to get us. So my dad carries me out to the car, and my brother and my dad and my mom and I, we all drive to the hospital. When we get to the hospital, they carry me inside and they check me in. Then I have to wait there. I'm sitting in a wheelchair, but I have to wait for like half an hour, something like that. And so they finally get me into this room and they take a look at it and they say, yep, you're gonna need stitches. And so they start to give me anesthetic shots, local anesthetic around my foot. And I've never had that many shots in one place before. It was really, really unpleasant. It was not a great sensation, but I handled it, okay? I decided that, if this will make it feel better, it's fine. And so then they came in and they needed to clean it. And the cleaning it part was actually really interesting because they had these tweezers that would open the other way, so they would open up the cut so that they could swab it out and clean it out and stuff. And it was ticklish. It was a really fun feeling. And so then after it's all cleaned, we have to wait. And because it's the ER, everything is backed up and everything's slow. And so the doctor was only supposed to take like a few minutes to come get to me, but they took way longer than that. And that's going to come back later. And so they finally get in, my foot's still numb, and they start to stitch it up. And they tell me this is the time to look away if you don't want to see this. But I want to see it. I am fascinated by this. So I make them prop me up so I can watch them stitch up my toe. And so they do 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, and about halfway through the stitches I start to feel it, and it had been kind of a tickly feeling as the thread is run through your skin, but now it starts to be a little bit painful, and so I go, ow, 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 as they're sliding the needle through my skin. And the doctors had taken so long after the anesthetic had been applied that the anesthetic had started to wear off. So then I had to get a bunch more shots in my toe, and then I had to wait more time, and then I had to get the stitches finished. And so that was the end of that. We went home. I had my stitches for several months, and then the day I got them out, I went to this garden party, and my dad was very clear. He was like, do not take your shoes off, do not run. And I was like, okay, fine, I've got it. And I took my shoes off anyway. And I wasn't running, I was walking, but I took my shoes off. And at the very end of the party, I bent my toe too much, and my cut split back open again. And that is pain that I remember. That was not numb. I felt that. And it was really, really horrible. And so then I had to have it bandaged up. I had to have butterfly closures on it so that the skin could be healed. And for years after that, I would just randomly get this stabbing pain in my foot across the scar that I have there. And it's because it didn't heal quite right after I split it back open the second time. So moral of the story, listen to your parents and be careful with rocks.